Hey guys, and welcome to another Walk-In Wednesday. Today I'm going to talk about this gun, which is a Luftwaffe-issued PP. I'm also going to tell you the story of the vet who brought it home, whose name is Leslie Gustafson, also known as Gus. Most of the information that I got about Gus came from his son, Bill, who sent us a lot of materials, which I'm going to go over with you to talk about the story of this gun and the story of another veteran's life. I did two other videos. We have links that you can click below. One of Kenneth Price, who got a Silver Star in the Army, and then also Paul Tidwell, which I did more recently. You can check that one out if you'd like, and that's a story of a pilot, transport plane pilot, who served honorably in World War II. So Leslie Gustafson, who I'm going to call Gus, because that's what his friends called him, he was born in 1923 in Minnesota. When he was young, the family moved to Pontiac, Michigan in order to seek employment in the automobile industry. Gus graduated from high school in 1942, and we just happened to have a yearbook picture of him. He looks like such a young man. But I want to do a shout out to Mark Grassman, who has a Ancestry.com account, and he has helped me in finding information on some of our vets. Also provided these pictures. So thank you, Mark, for being a loyal follower of our channel and for helping out in tracking down these veteran stories. So just like most people who graduated during the war, men, as soon as they got out of high school, they quickly were inducted into the Army, and that's true for Gus. He had a few months off. Seems like he worked a little bit in town before he went off to basic training at Fort Custer, Michigan. From there, if you remember the story of Paul Tidwell, I said that they do intelligence testing. He evidently scored pretty high because he was sent off to special training in Fort Maxey in 1943, where he was trained to become a combat engineer. Now, those of you who love war movies, as I do, you know a little bit about combat engineers. They were basically trained to build bridges, sometimes to help people get across the river, or any obstacle. They would basically blow it up. So they built bridges. They also blew up bridges when they're retreating and the enemy's following them. A lot of you guys have said I have the best job in the world, but imagine this guy's job. He got to roll through Europe just blowing stuff up. And that's what Gus was trained to do, blow things up. Now, a little bit about Fort Maxey. It was only opened in 1942 just to accommodate the influx of new recruits. So they built Fort Maxey pretty quickly. And then once they trained several 100,000 troops there, it actually became a prisoner of war camp. And so in 1943, 44, and 45, it served as a German prisoner of war camp. It was closed when the war was over in 1945. So following all of his training as a combat engineer, he was assigned to the 29th Infantry Division. Here you can see a symbol of that division, and that patch was on his uniform. I don't have a copy of his uniform, but I do have pictures of him in uniform that we'll take a look at. But his specific unit was the 121st Combat Engineers. So the 29th Infantry Division, this actually comes from Gus's family, and these are maps of where they went throughout Europe. They served throughout the European theater, and this is just a really cool map with a lot of information. It actually makes my head spin as I'm just going through the unit. Also, it came with this brochure about the 29th Infantry Division. Kind of cool. You can page through that a little bit. But his combat experience actually started at D-Day. He was in England for training, and actually his unit was not going to be called up for D-Day. They had all the slots filled. Probably he had mixed feelings, wanting to be there for all the action, but also not wanting to be killed. His unit was not called up initially. There was a training accident. As you probably know, they used those Higgins boats to the landing craft. During one of the trainings, one of them capsized and all of the guys on board died in the training accident. So Gus's unit of combat engineers were called up for D-Day at the last minute. You can just imagine that night as he went to bed, thought he was safe and sound, and find out either the night before or hopefully it was the next morning, because you wouldn't sleep knowing I didn't think I was going in for the invasion, and now I am. And that's what happened to Gus. So one really cool part of the story is his job, and he expresses it in some of the letters. The handwritten letters, by the way, here's some of the letters that his family provided. The handwritten letters just are from when he was going into battle or actually in the field. Later on, he used typewritten letters when the war was almost over or he was stationed, behind the lines. He used typed letters, but his letters are filled with anecdotal stories. His son said after the war was over, he didn't really talk about what happened in the war very much. And that's a consistent story that I've heard from a lot of the families. They'd say Dad or Grandpa never really talked about what he did. But thank goodness for these letters, because I've kind of gone through them and pulled out some anecdotal stories that I want to share with you. And talk about precision. Gus records that at 6:07 a.m. he landed on Omaha Beach. His job was to provide passageway through the barbed wire. Those of you who have seen the movie The Longest Day, I think John Wayne's in that one, but more recently, Saving Private Ryan. Here's a movie clip of the Bangalore torpedo, and that was his job.
Bangalores! Bring up some Bangalores! Engineers coming! Grenades! 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 Bangalores off the line! Heads up! Fire's coming your way! Bangalores! Clear the shingle! Fire in the hole! Fire now! Fire in the hole! Fire in the hole! We're in business, definitely!
So his job specifically was to use the Bangalore torpedo to cut a passageway through the barbed wire. So one of the anecdotes that Gus explains is he said, "I did my job and then I found a place to hide." Now talk about honesty. If I told that story, I would have single-handedly taken out the machine gun nest in front of me. But he said, "I did my job and I found a place to hide." And his comment was, "I didn't want to die that day." Later, he said it was a lot of chaos, a lot of units were completely disassembled. He said that an officer came by and grabbed him and said, "Follow me." And so he continued in combat throughout the day on June 6, 1944. After D-Day, there's not a lot of specific information other than in Brest, France. And that's where they, after Normandy and after they broke out, you can see on this map that they really encircled the Germans, and once they broke through. And in Brest, France, he talks about taking out minefields. That was one of their jobs. He talked about the fact that he would stay behind the lines, and actually there's a picture of him sleeping in a comfortable bed. So there were times where he was behind the lines, staying in a town that had been taken. But he said they would be called up whenever there was something to be blown up. And in this case, he was called forward because there was a minefield that needed to be removed. And so he came into Brest, France, and he removed the minefield. And for heroic duty, whatever happened that day, he got a Bronze Star and a citation that his actions were above and beyond the call of duty. Later on, and after the war, by the way, both France and Belgium gave him a Croix de Guerre. My French is, and you thought my German was bad, my French, oh, oui, oui. Of Belgium and France, the country gave his unit the Croix de Guerre for heroic action during World War II. Also, one of his anecdotes, he said not only did they blow up minefields, but he said sometimes they had to go and plant mines. And he tells the one story I thought was kind of fascinating. He said, we would plant mines until we would run out. And of course, we were told to fill the entire field. We would run out of mines. So he said, we would cut down the telephone pole. He would slice them so he would have round wooden discs, and he would plant them in the ground with a little mound so the Germans, at least, it would stop them because they thought it was a minefield. I thought that was pretty clever. Never heard that one before. So one of my favorite things about Gus is he helped to keep Legacy Collectibles alive because he sent a lot of things home. Now, I believe a lot of the guys, they didn't bother to get capture papers. In Gus's case, I have capture papers that show that he was sending a lot of things home. The way he described it in the letter, again, he would go up to the front lines. And he said as the Germans were retreating, they just piled up all their stuff and left. So, you know, anything that they couldn't carry with them just got piled up. And he said it was a lot of things that were dangerous. So he was behind the lines. He would be called up. He would rush forward in a Jeep. He and his other guys in his unit would drive to the front lines, and they would pile up all the equipment that the Germans left behind, and they would just blow it up. And so he said he pretty much, as he went through all this equipment that was left behind, he had his pick of the litter. And so he would blow things up, but grab a few things, throw them in his duffel bag, and mail them home. There's in his letters he talks about, I'm sending you another package, and then the next letter, I'm sending you another package. So he was getting souvenirs from the war, going back behind the lines, sending them home, and then the next day going forward and blowing things up. And he was right on the front lines. He said, I would wire this surplus equipment, I would get behind a tree and blow it up. But he said I was right on the front lines being shot at, and I lost 3 Jeeps. So that tells me he was really in the thick of things. Here's some of the capture papers and some of the things he mentions. This one says 1 German knife, so we don't know, that could have been a bayonet. Could have been one of the parade daggers that we've shown in one of our videos. Also here, and again, these are just copies. The family kept the originals, and kudos for them for keeping the originals on all this stuff. But here we have 2 German flare pistols. Now, I was looking at this picture. I showed it earlier. Well, here they are on a bed, and you can see Gus laying on the bed, and on the nightstand next to him, it looks like a revolver, but the barrel is way too fat. And so I'm thinking it's a flare pistol, laying beside his bed with his helmet, and then he has capture papers where he said he sent home 2 flare pistols. Then on this one, this was a pretty big load. This must have been a package. 1 trench knife, 3 bayonets. It looks like 1 pair of wooden shoes. That much must have been from the Netherlands. But he decided to send home a pair of wooden shoes. It says 1 crystal. I have no idea what that is. Various insignias, leather belt, 3 armbands, 1 book, and 1 book of pictures. And here's a book that came home, was sent home by Gus, and this is Adolf Hitler, Mein Kampf. This is not rare, by the way. There are volumes that are rare, but probably more than 1 million of these were sold. This one is dated September of 1937 and signed by the Burgermeister, or the mayor of the town. So probably in one of the towns he picked this up and sent it home. Don't worry, there are millions of them, so it wasn't missed. This capture paper, back to the capture papers, we have a P-38 that he sent back, and another letter talks about a Luger that was sent back. So the son, Bill, said that a lot of the things that came home were divided among the family members. His brothers and sisters all got different things. Bill got this PP, but he also got this pair of binoculars. This is mentioned in a letter, and he talked about where he got it. It's not in very good condition. These are, you can see from the markings, these are actually serial numbered. These are military grade binoculars, but not very expensive ones, certainly not a high-ranking officer, but it comes in the original leather case, and these are pretty beat up. This is going back to the family, but this is one of the things that Bill, the son, kept along with this Walther PP. So for me personally, the most important part of this assembly, and certainly the personal history is more interesting to the family, but I just love this gun. As a matter of fact, it was not this gun, but I just sent some guns to Ian McCullum at Forgotten Weapons. There's a link below to his video, but he specifically says, I got these guns from Legacy Collectibles. That would be me. And he talks about the Luftwaffe-issued PPs and PPKs. And that's what Gus sent home to his family. This is a Luftwaffe gun. No idea how he got a Luftwaffe gun, other than one of the things that probably they occupied and the Germans abandoned. They left an Air Force base, and the Americans just, put everything in a big pile, blew it all up, probably including planes and bombs and things like that. But I'm not saying that's how he got this gun, but this is a Luftwaffe PP. It's a dropping style holster. Don't ask me why they call it dropping, but that's maybe it's because this drops into place. I don't know, but this is the style that the Luftwaffe preferred. And we see this on other holsters. I'm going to show you some other Luftwaffe guns. But inside you can see Leslie Gustafson, and it has his GI number. It has the 121st Engineer Combat Unit. It has the serial number of the gun, and then an address in Pontiac, Michigan. So we already know the story behind that. Now the gun itself is in 9mm. Those of you who collect these guns know that 9mm is pretty rare. They didn't make a lot of 9mm. They only made 1,800 for the Luftwaffe. And Ian talks about it, and so I don't want to repeat everything he said, but the way we know that it's a Luftwaffe gun is because of the serial range. Also, they would be Waffen stamped, which means they were accepted into the military. You can see the Waffen stamp on the slide and the frame. But the Luftwaffe, for some reason, required that it come with 2 numbered magazines, and these magazines were numbered on the bottom. In this case, we have the original 2 matching mags. So that just means that Gus picked it up directly from the German or from the base with the original 2 matching magazines. You can see them numbered on the bottom. This one is dented a little bit. Maybe somebody used it to hammer something in. But it's got 2 matching magazines in a 9mm PP. The condition of this gun is very, very nice. And of course, it would come in this holster, which has a Luftwaffe mark. Now, you can barely see it here, but inside there's it's a droop wing eagle L2 proof. I actually have the 2 guns that I sent to Ian. They're in a little bit better condition, and therefore it'll be a little easier to see the markings. So let me show you those 2, even though you probably already saw them. First is going to be a PP, just like the one that Gus brought back, except this one is in .32 caliber. Again, you see dropping holster. When you open it up, you can see the maker, which is HCK and 1941, and then you see the Luftwaffe Eagle. In this case, it's very distinct. It's a clear stamp. And then you see that it was issued with a model Walther PP. Here's the gun itself. And you can see excellent condition, Waffen stamped. And on the other side, you can see it is slide numbered and frame numbered. Also comes with 2 matching mags, which is distinctly Luftwaffe. So this gun, if it only has the Waffen stamp, it could have gone to any branch of service, but the Luftwaffe in particular ordered them with matching mags. If you have one, maybe the mags are missing and you think it might be Luftwaffe, just send me the serial number. We'd be glad to look it up for you and let you know whether or not it was in the Luftwaffe contract. I do have an extensive database. Let's look at the PPK. Again, the same characteristics. We have a dropping holster, and when we open it up, the ink stamp does say PPK, model PPK, harder to see, and the date is, I think, the same, but it's harder to see. But you do see the Luftwaffe Eagle stamp. Once I remove the plastic, you can see the gun is very similar in that it is Waffen stamped. It's a high polished finish from about 1940. The slide is not numbered to the gun. And again, characteristic of the Luftwaffe, it comes with 2 matching magazines. So PPK, complete rig, issued to the Luftwaffe in about 1940. Every once in a while, I come across a PP that is military marked. You see this PP, gorgeous gun. This is in 7.65. You can see the Waffen stamp, so we know it went to the military. We see that the slide is numbered and the frame is numbered, so now I'm thinking, okay, it could be Luftwaffe. And by the way, the serial number falls in a known Luftwaffe range. If you have a gun and you think it might be Luftwaffe, please send me the serial number and we will get back to you and confirm or contradict your theory. We can tell you from the serial range if it was possibly Luftwaffe. In this case, it has 1 matching mag. was made in 1940, and it came in this holster, which is not a dropping holster, but I just had to show you this to you because it'll help you learn something new today, possibly. Here's a holster that is not a dropping holster. It's definitely a PP holster, fits perfectly. And when I look at the back, check out the symbol. HK is the maker, which is Krieghoff. So this holster was made by Krieghoff, or at least went through the Krieghoff factory. It is dated 1940, and what do you see right there? That's correct. That is a Luftwaffe Eagle II proof. So Krieghoff holster, Luftwaffe approved, and inside we have a PP that went to the Luftwaffe, which is not a dropping holster. So this is a fairly rare combination. Here's the same dropping holster, but in this case, when we open it up, it has the 1930s, the model 1937, which is a Femaru. So this is not for a PP or a PPK, but this was specifically made for the Femaru. If we look on the back, this one was made in 42, and in this case, it's a much smaller, but hopefully you can see there's a Waffen Eagle II, also known as a droop wing L2 proof. So that's a Luftwaffe proof. This we know because the Hungarian factory records were not destroyed. We know for a fact that these were issued to the Luftwaffe, and we have the documentation for that. Here's the gun itself. You can see this is JHV is the factory code, and you can see this is the contract from 1941. On the trigger guard, you can see the Waffen proof, meaning it was approved by the military. And these also came with 2 matching mags. In this case, the numbered mag, and it's going to be really hard for you to see. So you're probably going to take my word for it. But on the bottom, it says model 37, and then right in the crotch of the bottom piece is the serial number to the gun. So this gun came with 2 matching mags as well and was issued to the Luftwaffe. Now, just because I know you need more gun porn, let me just show you one others. Now, I did a whole video on the Femaru, and this gun is in that video. You can check out, just if you go to our Legacy Collectibles YouTube channel, just put in Femaru, and you'll see this gun. Again, you can see it is a pistol, model 1937, and this one is dated on the back, 1941. And you see a much larger Luftwaffe stamp. So we know it was accepted into the Luftwaffe. This is called the tropical holster, most likely issued to the Africa Corps. The Luftwaffe in the Africa Corps, they use the tropical rather than the dropping holster. So this is just slightly different. The gun is again JVH 41. And you can see that it has a Waffen stamp right here on the trigger guard. And it comes with 2 matching magazines right where I showed you before. So again, you might have to take my word for it, but this was issued to the Luftwaffe as well. These are great guns, and if you haven't seen the video on the Femaru, you might want to check that out. Great gun. One other contract that we know for sure, I'm going to do a separate video just on Krieghoff. Some of you have been waiting for that video. But I'm going to do a separate video of Krieghoffs. Here you can see samples of Krieghoffs, and if you look at the stamping on a Krieghoff, all of the Krieghoffs went to the Luftwaffe. So these are a little bit bigger guns, so they might have gone to anti-aircraft groups or other people in the Luftwaffe. It's assumed that the smaller pistols went to pilots or officers, whereas the larger guns, the 9mm Lugers probably went to ground crew and things like that, although it could have gone to bomber groups. And there are reports that Luftwaffe paratroopers carried Krieghoffs. Now, there was only about 10,000, maybe 12,000 Krieghoffs made, so not a lot of them went to the Luftwaffe, but again, the vast majority of Krieghoffs went to the Luftwaffe, and you can see the L2 proof on these guns. These are basically dated between 1936 and all the way up to 1944, possibly 1945. And as I mentioned, stay tuned because I'm going to do a video just on Krieghoffs. Now, finally, and Ian says in his video, are there other guns that went to the Luftwaffe? Yes, but we just don't know for sure. Just like guns, many of the guns that went to the Kriegsmarine, I'm going to do a video on the Kriegsmarine. Some of them had unit markings where they went to the Navy base. But other guns went to the Navy and are not marked in any special way. So we just don't know for sure. Here's an example of a gun that we assume went to the Luftwaffe, even though there's no special marking on it. So this is the last one I'm going to show you, and I have seen other holsters like this. So here's a dropping holster, and when I open it up inside, you can see HSC. So obviously a Mauser HSC dropping holster. When we look at the back, we can see the maker initials. We can see the date of 1943, and we see the Luftwaffe stamp. So we know the holster went to the Luftwaffe, and the gun inside may have as well. And what would make it easier for us is if they numbered the mags. But in this case, I've not seen any HSCs with number mags other than a few police guns. So a few police guns with numbered mags I have seen. I've never seen a Waffen-proof HSC with numbered mags. So let's just take a closer look at this. On the trigger guard, you see the Eagle 135. So it went to the military. There's no other marking. The magazines are not numbered on the bottom. So it's hard to say 100% sure these all came together. But I bought this all together. We know the holster went to the Luftwaffe. It's possible that the gun and the holster all came together back from the war exactly like this. So because of the holster, we know some HSCs went to the Luftwaffe. We just can never say 100% sure. So when I sell something like this, I would say, you know, first of all, the holster by itself is worth about $2,500. The gun by itself is worth about $1,000. So you put them together, and I've got a $3,000 rig that possibly could have gone to the Luftwaffe. Okay, one last gun that went to the Luftwaffe, just because these frequently come in a dropping holster, and some of those dropping holsters have Luftwaffe proofs on the back. It is a model 1922 FN Browning pistol. These are fairly inexpensive, and you can come across them from time to time. It's hard to say that any of them absolutely went to the Luftwaffe because, again, they do not have numbered magazines. They do, however, they'll always have a Waffen-proof, which is Eagle 140, and then they will come in a dropping holster, usually with a date and a Luftwaffe proof on the back. So that does not mean that all model 1922s went to the Luftwaffe. It just means the Waffen-proof ones went to the military, and some of those went to the Luftwaffe. So let's wrap up this video about the Luftwaffe guns, but most importantly, the life of Leslie Gustafson. Gus came back from the war in December of 1945, returned home, and he worked for a bottled gas company, and then much later in his life, he became an insurance salesman. He was very active in his local VFW lodge. Here you can see his hat, which I'll be sending back to the family, but on this it says Post Commander. Now there's a little bit of humor that goes with this Post Commander, not only all the pins, and these are just different VFW buddies. They worked together and hung out together. Most of these are from Michigan, but you can see the hat just has a lot of memorabilia from some of his buddies. This one symbol was his actually, that's the 29th Infantry. But one of the things I find ironic, his son said that his father often would talk about he was offered promotions and never rose above the level of a private. And that was because he said, I'd rather be a live private than a dead officer. So in spite of opportunity to move up in the ranks, he just did not want to become an officer. He preferred to rub shoulders with the common foot soldier and remained a private. But when he came back to civilian life, he became a post commander. So kudos to him. Let me just read you something that his son said at his dad's passing. My dad served as the post commander at the local VFW. One thing he was very involved in is he was an honor guard for fallen veterans. He trained many of the vets to perform this duty, and he himself did dozens and dozens of funerals for our honored vets. When it came time for the bugler to play taps, he and his buddies fired off a 21-gun salute using the M1 Garand. When my dad passed away in July of 2009, many of the very honor guards that worked with my dad came and did his service. The chaplain of the VFW Corps knelt before my sister and said, "On behalf of the President of the United States and a grateful nation, we present you this flag." My dad was just a normal guy who did his duty, came home, loved and raised a family. But lest we forget, he was also a boy who landed on Omaha Beach along with a bunch of other boys, many of whom did not come home. This pistol I just sent to you is not only an old collectible, it carries with it the story of a very real and honorable man, my dad. Hey, thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed that as much as I did. The story of Gus Gustafson and some of the bringbacks that he brought back from the war. Make sure you like and subscribe and pass the video on some of your family and friends. Make sure you hit the notification bell so that you know when I send out another video.